the lights exploded across the runway, bathing the venue in an electric glow. The bass of electronic music pulsed through the hall, each beat echoing in the chests of the audience. And then she appeared, a tall, ethereal figure with platinum blonde hair cascading like liquid light, eyes as cold and piercing as shards of ice, and a presence that was both feral and fragile. Abbey Lee Kershaw, the girl from Australia, who had once been dubbed the Amazon of high fashion, moved like a vision carved from some otherworldly dream. Every gaze followed her, entranced. Yet behind the blinding glamour of the catwalk, Abbey was waging a private war, a battle between brilliance and shadows that no spotlight could hide. For a fleeting moment, she was hailed as the heir to the great era of the 90s Supermodels, those untouchable queens who had ruled the catwalks before her. Abbey walked the same stages that once belonged to Kate Moss, Naomi Campbell, and Claudia Schiffer. But unlike them, her fight was not only against the ruthless demands of fashion, it was also against her own body, plagued with illness since childhood, and against the gnawing void of identity within a dazzling yet soulless industry. The story of Abbey Lee is not merely about a model who conquered the world. It is a cinematic tale of glory entwined with despair, where the dream of rising to the top can transform into a silent prison, and where the beauty of light is always haunted by the dark side of fashion. Abbey Lee Kershaw was born in 1,987 inches Melbourne, Australia, into a working-class family. Her father was a mechanic, her mother a tattoo artist, an unusual pairing that shaped a childhood both tough and rebellious. From an early age, Abbey was unlike other children, a shock of messy platinum hair, piercing blue eyes, and a body that grew taller, faster, as if she didn't belong to the same world as her classmates. Yet her uniqueness was not only a blessing, it was also a burden. Abbey struggled with fragile health, facing meningitis, recurring tumors on her ovaries, and several painful surgeries before she even turned a teenager. For years, her life was defined more by hospital corridors than playgrounds. And still, adversity could not extinguish the burning spirit inside her. Abbey grew up restless, unwilling to be confined by rules or expectations. She experimented with music, art, and fashion. Friends called her the weird girl, while teachers often shook their heads at her stubbornness and vivid imagination. Beneath her delicate appearance was a wild force, a rebellious pulse that pushed her to escape the boundaries of an ordinary life. For Abbey, becoming a model was never some glamorous fantasy. It was a door she longed to open, a chance to turn her differences into a weapon, to prove that even a fragile, scarred girl from Melbourne could one day walk proudly under the blinding lights of the fashion world. That hidden energy, born from pain and defiance, would become the foundation of her meteoric rise, propelling her into the same orbit where the 90s Supermodels once reigned supreme. At 17, when most of her peers were still tangled in teenage dramas and school assignments, Abbey Lee Kershaw carried a different kind of hunger, the desperate urge to escape Melbourne, to leave behind the sterile walls of hospitals and the suffocating predictability of an ordinary life. She had always known she was different, but how could she transform that difference into something meaningful? The opportunity arrived almost unexpectedly. Abbey entered a small local modeling competition, not with grand dreams of fame, but as if searching for a window to breathe. She walked into the casting room with her long, lean frame, her pale platinum hair framing those arresting blue eyes, and an awkward but strangely defiant stride. The panel of judges fell silent for a moment. They weren't looking at just another teenage girl. They were witnessing a presence that felt alien, unpolished, yet impossible to ignore. For Abbey, it was the first time she felt the world was shifting beneath her feet, opening a path she had never dared to imagine. Her parents, however, weren't convinced. Her father, a practical man, feared she would be chewed up by the industry and spat out broken. Her mother, with ink-stained hands and a bohemian soul, worried about the cruelty of fashion. But Abbey had endured pain her whole life. Surgeries and scars had become her silent companions. This time, she refused to let fear dictate her future. When she signed with a modeling agency in Sydney, she left home with little more than determination. The early days were merciless, endless rejections, harsh criticism, and whispers that she was too thin, too strange, too sharp, too rebellious. But each no only fueled her resolve. In her gaze, people sensed a flame that refused to be extinguished. Within a few years, the Too Different girl would become one of the most sought-after faces in the world, striding down the same legendary runways where the 90-second Supermodels once wrote history. The very qualities that had made her an outsider, her icy stare, her untamed aura, her refusal to conform, would soon become her most powerful weapons. And so began the first true chapter of Abbey Lee Kershaw's turbulent cinematic odyssey. September 2008. The sky over Milan shimmered with anticipation as the audience filled the hall for Gucci's runway show. The lights dimmed, the music swelled, and then she appeared. Abbey Lee Kershaw, tall and statuesque, stepped onto the runway in a body-hugging dress, with daring cuts that revealed endless legs. From her very first stride, the crowd was transfixed. She wasn't just another model, she was a vision, an Amazon-like warrior with platinum hair gleaming under the spotlights, eyes sharp as blades, yet carrying an air of fragile mystery. In that instant, a star was born. Abbey Lee had announced herself to the fashion world. The Gucci show was only the beginning. Almost overnight, Abbey became the darling of the industry. Chanel, Fendi, Versace, Alexander McQueen, every major house wanted her on their catwalk. Within a single season, she walked in more than 29 shows, an astonishing number for a newcomer. Yet it wasn't about quantity. Each appearance left an indelible mark. Vogue Paris quickly named her among the top 30 models of the 2000s. The press baptized her as the alien supermodel, a rebellious fairy who was rewriting the rules of beauty. Abbey's allure was not confined to her striking features. The angular face, hypnotic blue eyes, the platinum mane that seemed to catch fire under the lights. What set her apart was her presence. On the runway, her steps were decisive, her stare razor-sharp, her confidence bordering on arrogance, but that arrogance was magnetic. When Abbey walked, she didn't just model clothes, she commanded silence, as though the audience was watching a story unfold with every movement. Karl Lagerfeld, then creative director of Chanel, once declared, "Abbey is the embodiment of modernity." She is wild and regal at the same time, a rare combination. It was no surprise that she became one of Chanel's muses. At one memorable spring divided by summer show, Abbey appeared with her hair tightly braided in cornrows, her eyes lined in bold black, striding like a storm across the runway. That image went viral in fashion circles, cementing her status as a style icon. Her versatility in front of the camera was just as breathtaking. On the cover of Vogue Italia, Abbey wasn't simply posing, she became a living work of art. Photographer Steven Meisel, who had captured countless legends, admitted, "The camera adores her. Abbey doesn't pose," she narrates. "In every shot there was an untold story shimmering in her expression, a blend of defiance and vulnerability that made her unforgettable. But glory came with its shadows. In 2009, during an Alexander McQueen show, Abbey collapsed on the runway. The towering heels she wore and the exhaustion from relentless schedules pushed her body past its limit. The scene of her being carried backstage shocked the fashion world. For many, it became a brutal reminder of the industry's unforgiving demands. Yet, in true Abbey fashion, she reappeared on the runway just weeks later, striding with the same fierce poise, as if nothing had ever broken her. Campaigns followed in waves: Gucci, Fendi, Calvin Klein, Chanel, Dolce & Gabbana, and the coveted Victoria's Secret fashion show. Her face lit up billboards from New York to Tokyo. She embodied rebellion, freedom, and a kind of androgynous allure that resonated with a generation no longer willing to be confined by gender or beauty norms. By the early 2010s, Abbey Lee was more than a model. She was an it girl, a cultural phenomenon. She mingled with musicians, collaborated with artists, and slowly ventured into acting. The industry saw in her not just a mannequin, but a muse who blurred the lines between fashion, art, and rebellion. Whispers began comparing her to the greats, suggesting that Abbey was edging toward the status once reserved for the 90s Supermodels, those legends who transcended fashion to become cultural icons. Her peak was not defined solely by the number of shows or the prestige of her covers. It was defined by the statement she made every time she walked, that beauty is not about conformity, but about daring to be different. Abbey Lee Kershaw stood on the world's most dazzling stages like a flame, untamed, hypnotic, unforgettable. And though the lights shone brightly upon her, the shadows of the dark side of fashion always lurked, reminding her, and the audience, that even glory can be a dangerous game. In the rigid world of fashion, where beauty was often measured by strict formulas, Abbey Lee Kershaw emerged as an exception. She was never just a mannequin walking in borrowed clothes. She was an artist, a rebel, a force that questioned the very standards she was expected to embody. At the height of her fame, Abbey boldly turned down lucrative contracts that demanded she dye her platinum hair or hide her tattoos. For her, beauty was not about pretending to be flawless. It was about honesty, about refusing to erase the scars and symbols that told her story. She once declared, "If I have to become someone else just to please others, then I am no longer myself." That simple yet powerful statement became a manifesto, a guiding light for countless young women who were searching for the courage to embrace their true selves. What made Abbey iconic was never the sheer number of runways she walked, nor the stack of glossy magazine covers she graced. It was her refusal to conform. At a time when the 90s Supermodels were celebrated for their unattainable perfection, Abbey entered like a storm, embodying something raw and unpolished. Her androgynous beauty, her fearless energy, her unapologetic defiance, all of it made her unforgettable. Abbey Lee Kershaw did not simply wear clothes, she wore her scars, her past, her rebellion, and by doing so, she transformed herself into more than a model. She became a symbol of freedom, of resilience, and of a limitless definition of beauty. A reminder that even in the dazzling world of fashion, the most powerful statement is staying true to who you are. The runway had always been dazzling, but beneath its shimmering surface lay a battlefield. For Abbey Lee Kershaw, every step was not only a performance but also a confrontation with her own fragile body and restless soul. Behind the camera flashes and the thunderous applause, she endured a constant struggle with pain and doubt, a reality hidden from the glamorous pages of Vogue. Abbey's health had never been her ally. From childhood, she endured meningitis, ovarian cysts, and knee surgeries that at times left her in a wheelchair. Her body, tall and seemingly invincible under the lights, was in truth a battlefield of scars and resilience. When she should have been resting, she was pushing herself through grueling castings, strict diets, endless fittings. Pain became a silent companion. And yet, once she stepped onto the runway, the world only saw perfection, a warrior goddess who never faltered, even as her body trembled beneath the fabric. But the fashion industry is merciless. Its pace is relentless, its expectations crushing. To cope, Abbey sought escape elsewhere, in music, in art, in acting, and sometimes in the chaos of nightlife. Her rebellious streak, which once made her irresistible, now clashed with the industry's demand for conformity. Brands wanted her frozen in one image, the icy, untouchable muse. Abbey, however, longed to scream, to break free, to live beyond the narrow frame of the catwalk. The breaking point came in 2009, at an Alexander McQueen show, Wearing impossibly high heels, her body finally gave in. She collapsed on the runway, carried off as cameras flashed. The world gasped. For many, it was the rawest glimpse yet of the dark side of fashion, an industry that devoured youth and beauty without mercy. Yet, in true Abbey fashion, she returned weeks later, striding with her familiar steel confidence as if to declare, "You will not see me broken." As the years went on, the glamour began to fade. Abbey's face still appeared on billboards, her name still whispered backstage, but the offers slowed. She turned toward acting, landing a role in George Miller's Mad Max, Fury Road, 2015, as one of the fierce wives fleeing tyranny. The performance was magnetic, proof that Abbey could transcend modeling and carve a new identity on screen. But with each step into Hollywood, she drifted further from the runway. Fashion week after fashion week passed without her presence, and soon the questions began to spread. Where is Abbey Lee? The truth was complicated. Behind her artistic reinvention, Abbey was wrestling with inner demons, anxiety, depression, and the gnawing sense of being lost in an industry that worshipped surface over soul. On social media, she posted haunting, avant-garde images, neon-lit self-portraits, smoky-eyed stares, skeletal silhouettes. Fans worried. Some even speculated, but many admired her honesty. Unlike the polished facade expected of models, Abbey offered raw vulnerability. She showed the cracks, the fragility, the weight of existing in a world that demanded perfection while punishing individuality. The tabloids were less forgiving. They labeled her a fallen star, a model who couldn't withstand the pressure, who lacked the staying power to become immortal like Cindy Crawford or Claudia Schiffer. Yet those who truly understood her story saw it differently. Abbey's retreat was not defeat. It was rebellion, a refusal to let herself be consumed by an industry that thrived on breaking women down. "I love art," she once confessed, "but I don't want to be a victim of it. I want to live, not just exist in photographs." Those words carried the weight of a woman who had tasted both triumph and despair. For Abbey, disappearing was not surrender. It was survival. Her absence from the runway felt like a dramatic curtain fall, the final act of a performance too raw, too consuming, to be sustained forever. She left behind unforgettable moments, the Chanel cornrows, the Gucci debut, the legendary covers, but also a trail of questions that lingered in the air. Was her exit a conscious choice to protect her soul, or was it the silent victory of the industry's merciless rhythm? Abbey Lee Kershaw's story became a mirror of fashion's contradictions, a celebration of beauty and individuality, yet a stage haunted by fragility and loss. Her journey reminds us that the brightest flames often cast the darkest shadows, a truth that the history of the 90-second supermodels and the enduring dark side of fashion has shown us time and time again. As the spotlights dimmed and new collections marched onto the world's catwalks, many assumed Abbey Lee Kershaw's name would fade into obscurity. But her legacy was never meant to be measured in the number of campaigns or the frequency of fashion weeks. It lived in something far more enduring, the courage to exist authentically in an industry built on illusion. Abbey left behind the image of a woman unafraid of her own contradictions. She became a symbol of freedom, freedom of body, of expression, of spirit. She proved that beauty was not confined to flawless curves or polished perfection. Beauty could be raw, androgynous, even scarred. It could be found in piercing eyes that told a story of survival, in a body that carried both strength and fragility, in a soul that refused to be silenced. In retrospect, Abbey Lee can be seen as a precursor to the new generation of models who embrace fluidity, individuality, and imperfection. She opened a door for those unwilling to erase their differences, paving the way for a more inclusive vision of fashion. In doing so, she carved a place for herself alongside the greats, a modern echo of the 90-second supermodels, who defined an era by challenging what it meant to be beautiful and powerful. Some say Abbey vanished, but perhaps she never truly left. Perhaps she simply chose to stand outside the spotlight, leaving us with a haunting question. Have we forgotten her, or have we just been too afraid to remember?